Hey, what up, everybody? Adam here. Little preamble to this week's episode. This is a conversation with my good friend, Andy Squyres. And the moment I turned off the recorder, he confessed to me that at the beginning of this episode, he was trying to sound like Chris Lizotte, that he was trying to sound soft, that he was trying to sound tender, and he was trying to have that deep Southern California growl and gravity in his voice. And so you'll notice that at the beginning of this episode. But I also want you to notice that by the end of the episode, he is, well, his register has come up, his energy's come up quite a bit, and he is the stark raving mad Andy Squyres that we know and love. So 2 things for all you listeners. Number 1, there's only one Chris Lizotte. There's no imitation. Number 2, you are who you are. You are who you are. If you're Andy Squyres, you're Andy Squyres. And whoever you are, that's who you are, so you got to live with it. All right, everybody, this is a conversation that I loved, and it's really great conversation, especially for those people who are artists, who are leaning into their creative vocation. I think it'll bless you. And Andy, please forgive me. I had to throw you under the bus a little bit. All right, let's do it.
I want people to be knocked over by what they hear.
Yeah.
It's not easy to do, and it takes some time to get there. But you can't start there. You have to start with this kind of burning desire to say something extraordinary.
Yeah.
You gotta have something to say. I'll tell you what. What's really afflicting the church is voicelessness. There's so many artists that aren't saying anything. It's like we live in a world now where it's like if you have access to Pro Tools and a keyboard, you can put some type of cool sounding song together. But if you don't have anything worth saying, what's it all for?
The Ferment.
You're listening to the Ferment Podcast, conversations about worship and transformation. Today's guest is Andy Squyres. Andy is a singer-songwriter and the worship pastor of Queen City Church in Charlotte, North Carolina. Andy's also the writer of Cherry Blossoms, Vineyard Worship's monthly single for April 2020.
Peace.
This episode is brought to you by our friends at worshipteam.com. Worshipteam.com comes preloaded with over 12,000 songs, with new songs being added all the time. Hillsong, Bethel, Vineyard, Six Steps, Jesus Culture, just to name a few. Service building with Worship Team is a snap, and all the songs are completely legal and licensed. You can also find them on social media, Facebook at worshipteam.com, Twitter at worshipteam, Instagram at worshipteam_WT. Visit them at worshipteam.com for a free trial today. Complete worship planning with thousands of songs, easy interface, mobile apps, and legal rights for your church. All you need in one place, worshipteam.com.
Andy Squyres, you were in my office. What's going on, dog?
Man, I love being here. Not too much is going on, but I'm here, so I'm happy.
That's right. Man, welcome to Campbellsville.
It's my favorite place on earth, to be honest.
There you go. Yeah, that's because you come here 2 and 3 days at a time.
It's true. Yes, I leave.
You leave. That's how you keep places your favorite place, right?
Yeah, I mean, when you go to a place where there's no light pollution at night and you can see the stars like they were meant to be seen, there's something about that that's pretty compelling.
No, it's pretty great. I mean, right now at our house, at night when you go out, you can see the Milky Way.
Yep. Amy and I were looking at it last night. It was just like, it's stunning.
PTO.
Mm-hmm.
Anyway, welcome. Welcome to the podcast. This is your second time on.
Yes.
You are a veteran, my friend.
I am. I'm an alumni now.
That's right. Well, hey, here's what I want to do today. Because we've already laid a bunch of groundwork in our last podcast, and because you have another record that is going to come out this spring.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to start dropping singles here real soon.
Yep, next month.
And because I know a good portion of the songs that are on the new record and just sort of the journey that you've been on.
Mm-hmm.
I was hoping that maybe we could have a conversation about being faithful to your art.
Good.
Would that be cool?
Oh man, yes,
Yeah.
I love talking about that.
Yeah, because for me, you're someone that has been on this journey. I'm not calling you an old man, but I'm saying that you've been on this journey of doing this writing thing for more than a minute. And in my opinion, things have evolved and changed and progressed for you.
Yes.
And I just want to talk about how and why and where do we go?
Mm-hmm.
All right. So, hey, let's do this. I first want to start here. How do you think of yourself? And I guess I need to frame that just for a moment. I know that you're a songwriter. I know that you're a pastor. You've done lots of church work. I know that you preach.
Mm-hmm.
I know you lead worship. I know that some of your songs are like Sunday morning congregational songs, and then some are not.
Right.
You know? And so I'm just interested in how you think of yourself. Do you view yourself as an artist, as a writer, as a worship leader? I mean, I know all of those things are true.
Yeah.
But in your own soul, what feels native to you?
Yeah. I would say primarily I'm a writer.
Okay.
That's the way my mind is thinking and working most of the time. I mean, probably one of my in my marriage, the thing that Amy and I are contending with each other or working through a lot of the time is that I'm constantly in another place in my mind if I'm with her or the kids or just, living life. And it's because I'm working things out all the time.
Yeah.
I'm thinking about things and writing things for sure. So probably that's my baseline is in the world of ideas.
Yeah. So, and I really resonate with this thing you're talking about, that little moment between maybe you and Amy or you and the kids, or just the way that you sort of walk through life and you're there, but you can be sometimes in another place. I totally get that. If you're in the other place, are you just mining ideas or are you drilling down on songs?
Well, I think my brain is always working on ideas. I'm a very curious person. I really care about things we believe and things that we say and things that we're saying out loud. So, I mean, anytime you talk about art, the conversation surrounding art, and I'm using that in a general term, that can mean any discipline, literature, music, painting. Anytime you start talking about art, it's really, you're offering critique on some level. And so for me, I feel like I'm trying to find what's true and I'm trying to say what's true in a compelling way.
Yeah.
And so when I say that my mind is working problems out all the time in order that I can put words down on paper, the journey between the problem that I'm facing and then being able to express some form of lyric or poem or song or sermon, being able to say that in a way that is simultaneously beautiful or even, dare I say, sublime, but also clear enough for the receiver to take it in at some point. It might not be instantly, but gosh, there's some kind of transaction between the poet and the audience where there's hopefully transformation, Saying that out loud definitely sounds arrogant, but if you take your calling seriously, which I do, I believe that there are things that God has given me to steward. And if I take those things seriously, then I need to be working at that, and so I spend most of my time working those things out.
Yeah. One of the things you said there a moment ago is that you're a curious person. Yeah. So are these ideas, this working things out, is it it sounds to me like it's maybe coming from a place of curiosity, not just from which to me feels less burdened.
Right. Yes, but there's the curious side of things because I want to know how things work.
Yeah.
But then there's also the resistance side where I can walk into a situation and think to myself, I hate this. Why do I hate this? I need to respond to this.
Yeah.
You know, I'm kind of an erratic person in that I'm typically responding, if not outwardly, at least inwardly, to lots of situations that I find myself in.
Yeah.
And I don't know if that is because I've trained myself to always be looking for subject matter.
Yeah. Yeah, you're mining.
Yeah.
You're just mining moments.
Sometimes I wish I could just be like, you know, I don't know, turn my brain off and just, well, I have figured out some ways to turn my brain off, but.
Yeah. Netflix.
Well, yeah, or lately bass fishing has been my
oh yeah,
the gift from heaven, you know.
Fishing in Charlotte.
Can
you give us an update? How's
Well, I haven't become an influencer yet.
Yeah, we were talking about that last night.
Yeah, but I do have my little Instagram account, and it's just fun. It's just pictures of me holding bass that I've caught. It's silly, but it's just, gosh, it's just brainless fun. So
this really doesn't have much to do with the podcast, but I do want to ask it anyway. Okay, so when you're fishing in Charlotte, are you fishing like in the city?
Yes.
Hilarious.
In the heart of the city of Charlotte.
Hilarious. Urban warrior.
Yes. Mining for gold in the city, man.
Dude, that's so
in the form of 3-pound bass.
That's so funny. Okay. I want to talk about your songs just for a second.
Mm-hmm.
Some of your songs are, and I'm using air quotes here, church songs.
Yeah.
But lots of your songs are not. Do you plan that?
Yes, I do plan that. And I'm struggling right now in my life because I feel that writing corporate worship songs for me is very difficult for me at this point. And I wish that weren't so. And I do pray for a season that I can enter into again where I can flex that muscle again, because it's, to me, so important and wonderful when it's done well.
Why is it difficult?
Well, you know, I think I know this Chris Martin quote where he talks about the great difficulty in writing a perfect pop song. You know, like the template for a pop song, when you look at it, it seems so obvious. Short verse, massive hooky chorus with interesting lyrics. And when you say that out loud, it's like, well, duh, anybody can do that. Those chords anybody can play, right? But the genius lies in doing that in a way that's compelling. And obviously Chris Martin and Coldplay are a really good example of folks that have been able to do that over and over again. And I think in worship music, the great difficulty is in writing compelling things that you can play simply, but that are still musically interesting, you know? And I think for me, over the last...
So let me just jump in here.
Yeah, jump in.
So what you're not saying is that you're over God, or that you're over or you're over Christian themes. It's not that, because sometimes that is when I have this conversation with some people, it's like, well, I struggle to write worship music because I'm just kind of over church and God.
Yes, I understand those words when people say that.
Yeah.
But I don't believe that people who identify as Christians have a dry well, as in there's nothing to pull from.
Yeah.
What I believe the issue is that we're living in a system where, well, it could be an artist development issue. we make these sweeping statements sometimes that go like this: all church music is shallow, and all worship music that's coming out right now is boring. And so therefore worship music is shallow and boring. And I would say that's a generalization. And there's so much good worship music being written today. There are so many wonderful writers to be found in the church that I'm witnessing currently.
Yeah.
And I'm actually very encouraged about what I'm hearing coming out, even some of the bigger worship hubs,
Yeah.
I can honestly say this: I've been challenged in my own writing by some of the more well-known worship hubs, just in the thematic material. And so, yes, to answer your question,
Yeah.
I am not through with God, and I am not through with church music. And I think that there's just so much more to say in that arena.
It's funny how maybe at the beginning of a writing journey, especially for a worship person, I'll use the word naive. When you're a bit more naive about worship music or the songs you sing at church, it's sometimes easier. And then the more you know,
Yes,
it makes it more difficult all of a sudden. You start waking up to the reality of what you're doing, and then you're like, my goodness, this is really hard.
Yes.
Yeah.
I agree with that 100%.
That's the thing for me. Earlier in my little tiny writing journey, I would just write things, it was just automatic or whatever. And now sitting here, I'm a bit more aware of, people are going to sing this. They're going to sing it over and over. I want it to be true, but it also has to be compelling. We keep using that word. It needs to be hopefully beautiful. It needs to say something that is true today and tomorrow and yesterday. And that can be daunting at times.
Indeed.
Yeah. I know that, just to speak on what you were talking about a moment ago, some of the worship music that's coming out, because it is easy to make the critique of, it's all garbage or whatever. You and I were really touched by this little song called Jesus, Strong and Kind. I think it's such a perfect little, I use the word little. I don't mean that in a diminishing way. I just mean, I don't know. There's something tender about the song, and it just hits.
It's intimate.
It is. I love it. Yeah. So you're back to the original question, though. You're writing some songs that are maybe Sunday morning congregational, some that are not. You're planning that. So when you plan that, are you sitting down going, I want to write something for the church, or are you just getting into a song, realizing I think this may be congregational and leaning into it, or is it something different?
I have my local church that I'm a part of, and I think about our Sunday mornings in a pretty specific way. I think about the songs that we sing. I think formationally. I think the words that we're singing to God and to each other are really important. And I want, in that space, I don't want to be the star on this. I don't want to be the performer on the stage who's here to wow everybody. On a Sunday morning service, it's like we're all in this together. That's the way I think of it. Worship teams are offering leadership so that this big group of people can go somewhere together. It's not so the worship leader can shine, although they may.
Yeah.
But when I'm thinking about the art that I make as an artist, I'm never thinking that way. I don't want to think that way. I feel specifically called to say things out loud that you probably wouldn't sing together necessarily on a Sunday morning. And I think that's necessary. I think that the church needs some Bob Dylans, some Silicone Boones. Some
shout out.
Some guys like Josh Garrels who have never had a CCLI hit and never will.
Yeah.
But they're firmly entrenched. They're wearing the chains of the church, so to speak. And I feel firmly anchored and rooted not only in the local church, but in the church at large. And I feel specifically called to saying dangerous things within that context. If the artists are not being themselves that's a great detriment to the church.
Yeah.
Because it's artists that are suspicious of systems. It's the artists that are going to tell you when things are going wrongly. They're going to tell you when...
Yeah, you used the word critique earlier.
Yes. We need people that are going to critique our methods, our beliefs,
Yeah. It reminds me of the way a teacher would tell the student, show your work.
Right.
Don't just give me some answer.
Right.
But how did we get here?
Yeah.
Like, walk me through the emotions, or walk me through the ideation or the theology or
Yes.
the life patterns that got us here.
Yes.
Yeah. And I think that's a form of critique, rather than, sometimes in the church, it can be a system of, it can feel like a system of pat answers or like.
Definitely.
Right. It's like, well,
definitely.
This plus this equals this.
Yes.
And then, you kind of grow up in that, and then you get this collection of answers, but really there's this whole tradition underneath that we're unaware of.
Right.
And so some of the art, some of the pushing, some of the critiquing is revealing the deeper work that is actually there.
For sure. And I think contemporary Christian music is such an easy target. American evangelicalism is such an easy target. So I don't want to spend a lot of time tearing those things down, because I'm a part of those things in one sense. But I would say that in our attempt to offer hope and encouragement to a world that's really hurting, oftentimes we will err on the side of sentimentality or being trite. And I think that that's never what you see in the Gospels.
Yeah.
And I would say that the call of the artist or the writer or the, whatever your discipline is, it's to be faithful to the inheritance that the Lord gives you. And a lot of times you'll have artists sitting in churches and they're seeing the system where it's all about worship music or it's all about playing on the stage at the church. And when that's the only template that you see, or it's the only thing that you receive from, you can get the wrong idea that you're supposed to dilute or make safer the thing that you're carrying. And I say that's a huge mistake. That's a huge error. And the problem is that it's not always monetarily beneficial to say things in an interesting way.
That's right. I get that.
And
well,
so,
here's what I love, though. If I can maybe just reflect with you what I'm hearing you say. Part of what I hear you say is, okay, we have maybe Sunday morning liturgy that you and I are both a part of and believe in.
Yes.
Then there's also, within that liturgy, maybe there are some songs that are sung that are of a peculiar and particular milieu,
Yeah.
There's some things that just work when we're together.
Yes.
Right? And maybe, maybe if you're an artist, you come in, you're sitting in the liturgy, you are encountering songs that are of a particular ilk week after week, and you can interpret that, I would say wrongly. You could interpret that wrongly in terms of, oh, this is all the artist is allowed to say.
That's right.
Right?
Yes.
When in fact, no, there's a broader tradition.
Amen.
There's a much bigger tradition. It may or may not fit on Sunday morning.
That's right.
But we can't let that limit what we're doing.
That's right.
Or the work that we're going to give ourselves to.
Yes.
Is that what I'm hearing you say?
Absolutely.
Okay.
And I feel like the church needs to know that, and they need to call their artists out and help them do what they are specifically called to.
Hey everybody, Adam here, breaking into this week's episode to remind you about our Sing Together conference happening in Nashville, March 26th through 28th. This is the first Vineyard Worship conference that we've had at a national level in over 20 years, and we are stoked. I hope you are coming. Lots of people have signed up. We have a little bit of room left, and we want to fill it all the way up. We have great guests coming. Eleanor Mumford's coming. Ted Kim is coming. Dee Wilson from Common Hymnal is coming. Susan O'Brien is coming. Sam Lane is coming. John Mark McMillan is coming with his whole band. We're throwing a secret show at the Mercy Lounge right after our first evening session. Look, this whole thing's going to be a party. Bring your friends. Bring the people at your church. If you have somebody who's in worship ministry at all, throw them in the car and bring them along. But you need to sign up right now because space is probably going to run out. All right, everybody. Hope to see you there. Yeah, I was thinking a moment ago when you were talking about sentimentality and triteness.
Mm-hmm.
For some reason, my brain just went instantly to like resurrection. You know, we could write a sentimental or a trite song or give a trite sermon on resurrection and skip right over, you know, the things that the Gospels do not skip over, which is the betrayal of Jesus, the pain that Jesus endured, and then even the death, right? Like, so resurrection is a thing. Mm-hmm. It is a beautiful thing. It is a happy thing. But it doesn't ignore all of the difficulty that went before it.
Yeah.
Right?
That's right.
And this is where I'm hearing you say, well, maybe the work of the artist is to pick up the whole story.
Right.
And not just lean into, oh, it's a happy day because resurrection, without actually doing the work of saying, well, where did resurrection come from?
Amen.
And what is the soil that Jesus, the resurrected Jesus, grows out of?
Well, one of my favorite writers is Flannery O'Connor, and she embraced violence. She didn't exploit violence, but she definitely wasn't afraid of it. And I think that early on, I heard from well-meaning Christian people that here are things that Christians don't utilize in their art. They don't talk about violence. They don't talk about sex. They don't talk about family dysfunction. They don't talk about, whatever, anything that has any kind of, I don't know, just things that are difficult to talk about. We don't talk about those things in our music, in our paintings, in our filmmaking, because that they're impure, And to me, what that did or what that does is that I think it creates impotency in our storytelling. I don't want to just be convincing to people that are unbelievers. I just want to be convincing.
Yeah.
I don't want to be persuasive as an artist because my main goal is to get people to believe in God. I want to be persuasive as an artist because great art is always, to me anyways, moving people to God.
Yeah.
I believe that.
Well, didn't you tell me the story maybe a month or two ago? You did a house show and this girl comes to your house show. I think this was you and I talking.
This is it.
Right?
Yes.
Will you just tell that story?
Well, so I did a show near Chattanooga, Tennessee, and it was a good little crowd for me. I mean, I do these little house shows and 40 people will buy a ticket. That's a great night for me. And the show was done. It was a great night. And I'm standing over there at the merch table and this young woman comes up to me and she says, "Listen, I came here tonight because I had a bunch of friends. They dared me to come to this." And I said, "They dared you to come to this? What does that mean?" She says, "Well," she says, "at first I was going to come to your show and then I heard you were a Christian."
Yeah.
And I was totally disappointed in that information. And my friends, my atheist friends said, "We dare you to go to that show." And so just because she's saying this, just because I'm a bit of a contrarian, I decided to come and just be here, but her reaction to what I was saying and singing from the stage was that she was impressed. Not that I was up there trying to impress anybody, but what she heard coming out of me was, well, good art and a refusal to bow down to the idea that you can't talk about your own hardships in life. You can't talk about whatever,
Isn't it interesting that, you're as Christian can be.
Hopefully, yes.
Yeah. And it's definitely not where maybe this girl was at the moment. And you're definitely writing from that space, but something about the truth telling that's in your songs, it resonates with her, and she recognizes it as being authentic, as being true. And part of what I even hear in that story is it's attractive to her. It opens something in her.
Yes. Yes. Well, good art, whether it's founded in a Christian narrative or not, can stand critique. Just because a person's not a Christian and they're making art doesn't mean their art's any good. This is not what differentiates good art and bad art. Mm-hmm. There really must be something substantial in what is taking place. Yeah. And I think for me, I would encourage people that are listening to this podcast who feel some kind of draw or calling to make art of one type or another. My encouragement to people would be, you must decide at some point in your life to be misunderstood by your family. Mm-hmm. Like, there will be people in your church that do not understand what you're doing, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Because you're not trying to be famous. You're not trying to, I don't know. Maybe you are trying to be famous. There's nothing wrong with that either. I don't know. There's different degrees of influence. I don't make music so that I can sit in my closet and listen to my songs. I actually want
everybody out.
Right. I actually want people to hear my music and be impressed by what I'm doing. Yeah. I literally make it for that reason.
That's right.
I want people to be knocked over by what they hear.
Yeah.
It's not easy to do, and it takes some time to get there. But you can't start there. You have to start with this kind of burning desire to say something extraordinary.
Yeah.
You got to have something to say. I'll tell you what's really afflicting the church is voicelessness. There's so many artists that aren't saying anything. It's like we live in a world now where it's like, if you have access to Pro Tools and a keyboard, you can put some type of cool sounding song together. But if you don't have anything worth saying, what's it all for?
Yeah, I was talking to a friend the other day about a writer that I know who is a really good singer, like a really, really good singer. This person can, as the old saying goes, can sing the phone book. And I realized at a certain point that one of the things this particular writer was doing was hiding behind their voice. So they could trick you into thinking the song was good because they're such a good performer.
Yeah.
Right?
That's common.
It's very common, right? And to your point, like, you can take Pro Tools, we can use the drum samples, and in an afternoon, I or somebody who's a bit better of an engineer than I am can put together something that sounds good.
Yes.
Sounds passable.
Yes.
It's interesting. But to your point, it may not be connecting at a deeper voice level.
So if I can I want to make a little, I don't know if this is a prophetic declaration or not, but last 20 years within the church, we have seen a massive upswelling of technicians, as in people that can really play their instruments, people that can really mix a room, people that can mix an album. Yeah. Like, we have seen substantial growth in that area.
We know how to turn the knobs.
We do. But I would say that in the next 20 years, what we really need to see is we need to see a real upswell in poets. We need people that are reading and thinking and saying things in a way that undoes us.
Yeah. You know, Andy, as you're saying that, I was almost instantly reminded of our text thread. And so I just want to put like one little note of community in here.
Yeah, let's do it.
Okay, so you and I have this text thread with a couple other friends, 3 other friends.
Mm-hmm.
It's ongoing. It drives our wives crazy.
Crazy.
But you know, one of the things that I've realized, that text thread, and I'll just use it as this sort of an idea, that little virtual text community that we have where we're working out ideas, theological ideas, political ideas, social ideas, sometimes telling the particular struggles of our lives and, you know, pushing on each other, encouraging each other, pushing back on each other, all these things. Well, one of the things I realized is for a couple of the people in that text thread, that some of their art has come from it.
Definitely.
Right. And so there's this idea, you're saying, okay, we've become technicians, and maybe this next season is about becoming poets, reading, digging, learning the tradition.
Yeah.
Right.
Yeah.
I would also just want to say it would be really good if you had a community to be with for the push and pull.
Oh, for
the for the mining, for the just for the synergy that comes from being with some other people who are on sort of the same path.
Yes.
Right?
Yes. And for me personally, I need to be challenged as well. So I think the most dangerous thing for me personally is to start thinking that I'm way smarter than I actually am. Right? And so like sometimes I'll offer up an idea and I'm like, you know, guys, listen to this. This is incredible.
This is hot.
This is hot. But then, you know, you and our other unmentionable friends are like, yeah, no, that's foolish. That's terrible. That's you're an idiot, you know, and we kind of all need that in our lives.
I think we do. I think we really do.
If you don't have somebody challenging you, you just,
yeah,
I don't know. You just need that in your life.
and I'm thinking of one particular friend that you and I have who is maybe a good measure smarter than both of us. It's really great to have that person around, isn't it?
Totally.
Yeah, who can just tell you who can punch holes in your thinking.
I just being around that dude, my IQ points just go up. I just am smarter.
Shout out. But yeah, I love this because it is a part of the process. You were talking way earlier in this conversation about being in your own head, you know, working through the ideas, mining, you know, and that's a place maybe where things start. And I'm just thinking on the other side of that, there's this community that we're privileged enough to sort of have found ourselves in that is putting fuel on that fire in some ways.
Well, it's workshopping too.
Yeah.
You're working your ideas out.
Mm-hmm.
It's like they start in your head and then you start saying them out loud and then it's trial by fire.
Yeah, it's like stand-up night at the local comedy club, right?
Stand-up
just go
night,
try it out
open
a time
mic
or two.
night.
Yeah.
Yes.
Yeah.
And to me, that's very helpful because I need to keep learning. There are levels in artist growth where you hit these levels of mastery where you start going, okay, I've figured some things out. I know how to do this. You become the guy people start asking help from, you know? But even that's dangerous for a person because that gets boring after a while, and you need to become a beginner again. You need to get yourself either with an idea or with, you know, some people that are challenging the way you're thinking, because what that does is it opens you up again to it's a whole nother arena of ideas that then become songs, poems, paintings, sculptures, whatever.
There's nothing smaller than being the expert.
Oh,
nothing narrows
it's the worst.
like being the expert.
It's the worst.
Oh man. I get it. Hey, let's talk about this for a second. We hinted at it earlier, but I was thinking about this as we were sort of setting up for this conversation. I was thinking about how sometimes when I'm thinking about writing or making art or just making in general, I think of it as output. So, you know, I'm making a song or I'm
Yeah.
making a sermon. Or those are all outputs,
Yeah.
which sort of brings into question the reality of like input. So there's this idea almost of something has to come in order to have something to go out. What are some of the sources of input that give you the raw materials for writing songs?
Yeah, well, I haven't always thought this way, but lately, maybe the last 5 to 10 years, I've thought, I think in terms of artist development. So artistry isn't just my paper and pen and guitar, but what's coming out on that paper is who I am as a person. A lot of artists who are attempting things, they're getting really good at their craft, which is necessary. If you're going to be a guitar player, you got to take guitar lessons and you got to learn all that stuff. You need to go after that. If you're going to be a writer, you need to be going after the actual nuts and bolts of writing, how to write well. But to me, a lot of A&R people, artist development people will talk about the X factor. The X factor is the thing that makes your guitar playing shine. It makes your song infused with the invisible realities of what it means to be human, right? The artist development side is like this ongoing, lifelong thing of input where you're being honed. Like you've got this craft that you're practicing, but you're also being honed as a person, especially if you're like following Jesus and you're just kind of going through your transformation from sorry, rotten sinner to being made in the image of God. You know what I mean? Like there's that discipleship journey that you're on as well. And so for me, I can say that my art has gotten better as I've grown in clarity in my mind. I always think this, like muddy thoughts mean muddy songs. Muddy thinking manifests muddy art. And so I've always working out how to get clarity in my mind.
Yeah, so are there some sources of input that have helped you get clarity?
Well, I would say the community factor is real. Yeah. Sitting under preaching every week is very prominent in my life.
Yeah.
If I'm not preaching, I'm sitting under the preaching of the word.
Yeah.
I read constantly. I'm reading other poets. I'm reading other songwriters. I'm reading other theologians. I'm reading other philosophers.
Isn't it weird how reading is, like watching movies is awesome.
Yes.
And clearly film is art.
Yes.
And probably there's going to be some people on the podcast who disagree with this, and that's fine. But there's something in my brain anyway that makes reading different than all of those other forms for,
definitely,
for like honing articulation.
Yes.
And to use the image that you used a moment ago, to move us from muddy thoughts to something that's clear.
Yes.
Learning how to not just feel it, but to say it.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, Andy, one of the things I've noticed in your writing, I think there's a lot of things I love about your writing, but I think you're one of the very best at turning a phrase, to use sort of an old school songwriting vernacular here for a moment. You turn phrase. I think this is really the gift of your writing.
Yeah.
I think you're a poet, but you're doing it in sometimes very common language.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. Is there a source or two that's helped you along this journey, or is
no,
it? Yeah, what's happened there?
I don't know. That is the unexplainable part of this. I actually don't know how I do that.
Yeah.
It really is a joy for me to not know how I do that, because when I do it, I get to sit back and be in awe. Like,
yeah, it's just fun.
Like I have this, you got to listen to my new single, and if I can just pat myself on the back here for a second, I have this line in this song where I'm trying to express that thing that we all feel, where we've hoped for some type of miraculous intervention from the Lord, and for one reason or another, what we thought should have happened didn't happen, right? It's a common experience. We all go through this, right? Welcome to life.
Yeah.
And I was writing, and one day I came up with this line, cure for my fear of cancer is dripping down my throat. I still believe in miracles, God, even when you don't. And I sat back and I was like, that line is saying a million things at one time. And you can think about it for years and still not get it and get it all at the same time. But when I wrote it, I was like, genius. I just knew it was genius.
Yeah,
genius.
You had the heart of the song.
Yeah,
you had it.
genius level moments. And the only way I can describe getting that is that it's literally back to the first part of our conversation today, which is my mind. There's background programs that are working these things out all the time.
Mm-hmm.
And I would also say that I write a lot of garbage.
Yes, thank you for saying
yes,
this.
I write a lot of garbage. And so my insistence on writing continuously serves me very well.
That's right.
You know?
Okay, well, I'm glad you said that because I wanted to ask you this.
Yeah.
How do you know if something's good?
Oh, man.
How do you know?
Okay, I would say that is the development of instinct. So young writers are learning templates. They're learning nuts and bolts.
Yeah.
They're learning how to make their verses rhyme, and they're learning how to have a hooky chorus. And when you're in the beginning stages, you're learning nuts and bolts. And then when you get into the middle stages of your development, you've gotten some good songs under your belt. You've got some songs that your church wants to sing, or the club down the street that you're playing the audience is engaged a little bit with what you've said. And then you get to a point where you've done that enough times where good songs they're not really what you're after anymore. You're after gold, because the difference between gold and good is massive. And so the whole way of that journey is that as an artist, you're developing your gut. You're developing your instinct. You no longer allow yourself to release good material because you're only interested in gold. And how do I know when I've got that? I think it's when I really believe myself. Like, do you really believe what you're saying right now? Do you really believe what you're singing? Do you really want to say that out loud? And when I am in awe of something that I've done, that's when I know I want to say it.
How important is it for you that other people think your work is good?
It's pretty important.
Yeah.
It's pretty important. But I would say this, I've committed myself to having a small audience. I believe this. I believe in great pop music. I believe in the Coldplays and the U2s and the 1975s of the world. I believe in that kind of music.
Yeah.
But I also believe in the Bob Dylans of the world. So I figured out that I wasn't U2, and I figured out that I wasn't Chris Tomlin, not to diminish those guys at all.
Yeah.
But I finally realized that the cloth that I was cut from was more in that, say whatever the heck you want kind of thing, and set it to a guitar.
Yeah. How long did it take you to figure that out?
Probably till when I decided to do that, I was 37 years old. So 9 years ago That's when I decided to do that.
Isn't that amazing?
Yeah, because so I'm a late bloomer.
That's a good thing.
Yeah, it is a good thing.
That's a good thing. It's a good thing to be a late bloomer.
It is.
Oh, shout out.
Well, so I was writing worship songs up until that point, and I was actually doing well at it. I was really good at it.
Yeah.
And I was, getting some of my songs recorded by artists and making a little royalty money. Not massive, like buy a new house mailbox money, but stuff that was greasing the gears a little bit. Yeah. So I was good at it. I knew I could do it, but I never could land touching the nerve in that realm.
Yeah.
When people really started to pay attention to what I was doing was when I stopped caring what anybody cared about what I was doing.
Yeah.
So I literally, when Elijah Mosley and I made the Cherry Blossoms record, we only had one rule, and it was this. This should only sound like we want it to sound. We don't care if radio will play it. We don't care if anybody likes it. And once I got over anybody liking what I was doing, that was the very first time that I actually had an audience.
Okay, so this is interesting to me, and I'm not trying to put the screws to you.
No,
because I believe you.
Come on.
You are saying like the thing that changed for you was when you stopped caring. Mm-hmm. But a moment ago, I asked you like, how important is it to you that other people like your music? And you said, kind of a lot.
Yeah.
So talk to me about that, because there's some dynamic tension there, right?
So you're right. That seems to be a little bit of irony there, but I think.
Oh, and by the way, I'm totally cool with that.
Yes. And I think
I get it.
The genesis for me can't be, what does my audience want to hear? That can't be where I start.
Yeah.
As a writer, I'm committed to this idea of what is the spirit that is hovering over my brain saying to me? What is the song that is up here that I can pull out of heaven that belongs to me? I'm going to get that thing, come hell or high water. All right? Once I get that, then that's when I start caring about people hearing it.
Yeah.
So I guess I want to be able to afford to keep making these kinds of songs.
Yeah.
So I want 10,000 people to hear that song, come to my show, buy my t-shirt,
all that,
care about this way of saying things so that I can continue doing it. But not just that, but that they can actually think about God, life, their kids, their spouse, their workaday life in a way that maybe they hadn't heard before. So I don't know if I answered the question, but.
No, this is great.
Okay.
I want to ask you about something else that's in this vein.
All right.
Because it was just interesting. It sort of popped up last night at dinner.
Yeah.
We were talking last night, you and your fam. You're at our house this weekend, and we were talking about your new record, and you wanted to play maybe the first single for us, and I haven't heard it. Heather hasn't heard it, and Amy, your wife, had not heard it either. And you confessed that you were a bit nervous about Amy's reaction.
Yeah,
which brought a good laugh at the table.
Yeah, it was a laugh at the table, and then a moment of tension between us away from the table later on. Like we had a discussion about this.
Nice.
And
but I understand. Mm-hmm. I understand. It was like you're nervous about how she feels about it.
Yeah.
Is that what I was picking up on?
Yes.
Why?
Because I'm an artist and I'm addicted to taking risks. Like I just always feel like I want to run 10 years ahead of everybody else. And my wife and I, Amy and I, aren't the same person. She is not thinking that way at all.
Yeah.
And so I think there have been times where I've presented music to her that I've created in an unfinished way.
Yeah.
That she was just like, yeah, I don't get that. Or that doesn't sound good at all to me. And nobody affects me like Amy does. Like she's my heart of hearts,
Yeah, she's the closest to you.
Yes.
Yeah.
Yeah. So
I just loved that interaction. I loved it. I totally loved it because it's so real. It's gosh, if you can't win your wife over,
it's true.
Bro, who are you gonna win?
It's true.
Right?
And a lot of the a lot of the material that I'm mining from is either our relationship or our family life or all of that stuff is all in there, So it's like, I'm not really asking my family for permission to be vulnerable about all of the.
Sorry, guys.
Yeah.
This is just how it works.
Yes. All of the difficulties of life together as a family. And, but they know the deal. And I think in their heart of hearts, they're all up for it. And Amy's been around this long enough to realize that there's some risk involved with it, but I think she trusts me to do it well.
Yeah, I actually loved that moment last night because it was so real. And on the one hand, you don't want your wife to not like what you're doing. She's the closest to you.
Truly.
And on the other side, you don't want your wife to be like, "Oh, I love it," just in sort of an unthinking way, or just because, "Oh, you're my husband, so I love it."
That's right. That would be terrible.
Yeah. So it's that. There's the thing there, right?
And Amy is not that way. She's combative. Like she will challenge me.
Yeah. That's great.
And I need her for that.
Yeah.
I mean, it's not just in our life together. We've been married for 26 years and we talk to young people who are either newly married or on their way to getting married. And people are always asking us, like, what's the secret to a long, successful marriage? And we don't really know, to be honest. I mean, we're still figuring some things out after all these years. But
love that.
Amy always says this thing that she and I are both passionate people and we fight hard and we love hard.
Yeah.
And it's like, you don't really want to live a life without passion.
Yeah.
I mean, it's just keeps it interesting.
Yeah, love it.
So
I love that interaction last night. I could feel it. It was so real, and I just love that idea of I've made something, and I really want to impress you.
Yes, yes,
you're my most important person.
It's true.
Yeah,
you want your friends to be excited about what you do, right? I mean,
hopefully, my goodness. Yeah.
But at the end of the day, I would have, like, let's just say worst case scenario, Amy just hated the song.
Yeah.
I can honestly tell you, we could have found a place of peace where she could hate it and I could love it and release it.
That's right. There you go. Yeah. That's real marriage right there.
It is. That is real marriage.
Okay, maybe just a couple quick questions.
Yes.
And then we'll wrap.
Okay.
What are some things that get in the way of making art? I don't know that we've mined this yet.
Yes.
What are the things that sort of block it?
I have always said that I figured out a way to make art in the middle of the chaos of my life. So if you wait until you have an ebb in your busy life, in your busy schedule to make art, you'll never do it. I mean, when I was in my 20s, I had so much time to work on material, but I didn't have anything to say. It's almost like the speed of my life picked up at some point because I was responsible for a lot more. But I figured out a way to stay faithful to stewarding the gift in the middle of the chaos.
Yeah.
So don't tell yourself that chaos is an obstacle. It's just a pretend obstacle. So I guess the challenge to overcome would be the myth. If you're busy, you can't do this work.
Yeah.
That's a myth. To me, if you're busy, there is work to do.
Yeah.
That's the thing that actually provides you the fodder for your work.
Yeah.
We raised 6 kids and I wrote cherry blossoms in a living room being overtaken by street urchins, like
yeah, that's right.
My kids were running around screaming.
They don't care.
They do not care.
They do not care that you're trying to write a song.
That I'm a sensitive poet.
They don't care.
Trying to rule the world with my music. They don't
care that you need an hour.
They literally do not care. Yes.
Yeah, I love that.
So you got to figure out how to do it. Then I would also say that well, one of the tricks is in the middle of the chaos to always have a clean workspace available to you. So to me, I always have to vacuum before I can work. I have to vacuum and I have to organize my papers in stacks before I can work. So if there's a little bit of disorganization that you just need to get into order before you can actually work, go ahead and do it, you know?
Yeah.
Another challenge, I would say this would be like a more of a modern, updated challenge would be, I don't know what the right word is called for it, but I guess it's like Twitter brain. It's like my mind, because I scroll through my Twitter feed on a continual basis, I'm looking at one new idea after another.
Yeah, I think this is real.
Yeah, so maybe it's segmentation or something like that, where we're
just moving.
Yes.
On, next,
you have
next.
Constant flow of ideas, and that is a problem because that keeps you from working out a long arching idea.
Yeah.
And I think that overcoming that by getting into a book or sitting quietly somewhere,
I think that's so real.
That's real these days.
I think it is too.
And I think that we need folks who are committed to quiet spaces and folks that are willing to get off their iPhone for a while. I'll never get rid of my iPhone. I'll just tell you that right now. I will never get rid of my iPhone. I will never get rid of social media. I know there's a lot of work out there to like say that this is the devil.
Yeah.
And it's like anything, man. It just needs to be managed, right? Because we are here in this new economy that we're not going to be doing anything without this tool, right?
It's here.
It's here.
It's
and
not
it's
going
here to
anywhere.
stay. So embrace it. Make a living off of it if you can. But I would say it makes a great servant and a horrible master.
Yeah.
Right?
Yeah. And what? In the next 20 years, it'll be in our brain, right?
Yeah.
It won't even
like
be in our
that.
pockets anymore.
Yeah.
Elon's going to plug us in.
He's going to do something
Plug me in, Elon.
drastic.
Plug me in, please. Oh, man. Andy, this is good. Thanks for sharing all this stuff.
Oh, man. My pleasure.
Hey, before we wrap, what's the name of your new record? Do you have a working title?
I do.
What's the name?
It's called Kingfisher.
Kingfisher. All
Yeah.
right.
Yes.
All right, baby.
Yeah.
We'll be looking for it.
Our art director doesn't know that yet, but
He'll figure it out.
he'll figure it out.
He's adept at making changes. No biggie. So, when's the first single going to drop? Do you have any idea?
Yes, it's going to drop in March.
Okay, good.
Yes,
Good.
it's coming.
Well, we will get this episode out ahead of that so people can look for it. What's the name of the first single?
It's called Before You God.
All right. Before
Yeah.
You God,
Yeah.
out in March,
Yeah.
on a record called Kingfisher.
Yes.
Andy Squyres. Perfect.
Thanks, everybody.
Yeah. Peace.
Hey everyone, Casey Coram here, producer of the Ferment Podcast. Thanks for listening. I just wanted to remind you about our Sing Together conference in Nashville, Tennessee from March 26th through 28th. It's going to be a great time and we hope to see you there. For more information, go to vineyardworship.com. All right, people. See you next time. Peace.